Okay. Waiting for YouTube to catch up. Okay, welcome back everybody to home. This is part 2 and probably the last part. It's not that long of a game. So, last time we entered the train station. We interacted with the ticket booth. Okay. An old map encased in glass hung on the wall. It was the train routes connected to that old station. As I looked at it, it seemed familiar. Of course, the map I found in those tunnels had similar locations marked, and the notes I found on the other man's bookshelf. His notes mentioned the water tower and even this train yard. What was he doing? Coming back here? Okay. The old train was ripped open and hanging from a shred of metal. As well as the broken fence was a dark stained patch of cloth. It looked synthetic, like some kind of outerwear. Inside the train shell I could see a few faint impacts like wounds. Could they have been bullet marks? Somebody shot there. The ground was well worn, though I couldn't really make anything out. I realized I was touching the gun I had found, as I thought. Okay. Alright, now we're in the forest, I think. So, let's go. This must have been the entrance to the forest that was mentioned on the map I had seen. Whoever was poking around in those tunnels underneath that man's house had scribbled notes on this place, but I couldn't make them out. Here, the sign pointed out various campsites and walking paths within the woods. It mentioned a river and maybe a washroom, but the rest was too faded to see clearly. Okay. A dry old picnic table sat lonely amongst the trees. It had carvings and marks from years of previous campers. As I tried to read some of the names on the marks, I idly thumbed the knife I'd found. If I wanted to, I could have carved something on that table. Did I? I don't know. Did you? Okay. With a few crude strokes, I etched a simple design into the wood. R plus H. I felt like a teenager defacing the table. Okay. The path ended in a cold-looking river. I wasn't sure if it was safe to cross like this. Did I cross? No. In that darkness, it didn't seem wise to try. Maybe there was another option. Okay. Trampled into the dirt and grass was a plastic card of some kind. I brushed it off and was surprised to see it was my credit card. Wasn't sure if it was still usable, but it was mine. Did I take back my credit card? Pocketed the credit card. Hopefully I could find my driver's license too. Okay. Now, through the fence, I could see a dilapidated outbuilding. I wonder if I could find my way around. Okay. There was a fire pit there. It was still a bit warm, and a few embers still burned at the bottom. Okay. Why did that matter? Okay. Two folding camping chairs were on the ground. One was knocked over. There were a couple of cans of beer spilled on the ground. A cheap dome tent slept 2 people. I shone my flashlight inside and could see some bedrolls, 2 backpacks, and a cooler. Okay. Okay. I hear somebody in the bushes. There was some personal effects shoved back into the rock. Wait, there was a notebook there too. Did I read it? Inside the cheap dollar store notebook was a page after one page of names and lists. None of it made much sense. The newest page contained several names. Heather, Olivia, Ashley, Cheryl, Iris, Daphne, Holly, Rose, Rachel. Rachel? Her name was last on the list and had a mark beside it in blue ink. The names Daphne and Olivia had been crossed out in the same blue ink. Cheryl, Heather, and Rose had also been crossed out, but these marks looked older and more faded. Okay. Past. No, don't. What? Don't look? I don't know. This grimy sink had a small patch in it that looked almost clean. Okay. There was a damp-smelling plank leaning against the stall door. I might have been able to cross the river with it. Did I take it? I managed to carry the plank under my arm, so it didn't get in the way. Yeah, but I can't see it. Okay, hold on. Enter this one. I almost wish I had paid more attention to those crazy scribblings. Maybe I would have been less nervous about entering that dark forest. Okay. Is this not the one I needed? Wait, what? Is it this one then? Which one is the river? Shit. Okay, that's the building. I think I wanted to go back this way. Hold on. Okay, this is where we left. So we go past the first opening, enter the second opening, go left, and enter the next opening. So this is the forest. Shit. Nope. This isn't where I need to be. I gotta find the fucking river. It's obviously not this way. I don't know how I managed to find it, but I fucking did. Okay. The plank I found was long enough to form a crude bridge, but I wasn't sure if it would hold. Do I use it? Okay, now we're across the river. Two bodies, two young women, were half dug into a hasty, shallow grave between the trees. The younger-looking one was still face up, her dead eyes gleaming against my flashlight. They deserved better than that. Did I clean up the gravesite? I tried to cover them up a bit more, and I closed the younger woman's eyes. I fashioned a crude marker. I wasn't sure why, but I felt I had to do something. Okay. Head right and through the bushes. Okay. I had finally found the exit. Once I left, I knew I never wanted to return there. The forest started to thin out a bit, and through the trees I could make out parts of the town beyond, and the first hints of light. The mysteries of that forest were behind me, but I could still feel them on my neck like a warm breath. Those girls I had found. Someone had taken them from their campsite and had murdered them. Was it the same person who had left that odd notebook? I was even more eager to get somewhere safe and to find a way to reach Rachel. Okay. As I stepped through the gate, I suddenly recognized the auto parts factory where I had worked as a machinist for all those years. The plant closed almost 3 years ago. Now, times were better then. I thought I could hear a faint rustling behind me. Maybe it was just the wind. Okay. I found the body of a security guard, just doing his job, no doubt. His face was covered with blood from some kind of head wound. I wondered, was this flashlight his? Maybe. Dug into the ground was a cracked old watch. First my wallet, and now this. Did I retrieve my watch? The watch was useless, but I put it on my wrist anyway. Okay. One of the lockers hung open. Its contents were tossed around like someone had been looking for something. Okay. The door was locked shut, and there was a little electronic box under the handle. A sign was pasted to the front that said, "Danger, closed for repairs." Okay. There was a large power box with 5 lights on it. Cables burst out of the box, snaking off to other parts of the factory. The metal was starting to wear, and cobwebs had collected on the corners. The box wasn't receiving power. Well, we're probably going to fix that, right? Every part of this plant smelled old and rotted. I noticed the old bulletin board on the wall. Okay. The board contained yellowed clippings of newspaper cartoons and notices. There were notes to and from the guys that worked here. One of them was to Norman, who was one of the older guys on the line. Okay. A power panel. Looked like it was shut off. Did I push it? Yes. Still wasn't working. Do I try again? The open locker was stuffed with dirty work clothes and old boots. There was a photo of a woman taped to the inside, but it was scratched out, and the face was unrecognizable. A power panel. Looked like it's shut off. Okay, that one's on. Shut tight. There was a rusty-looking card slot on the side. Okay. Our old break table. The layer of dust and grime only made seeing this sting more. Okay. The door had been hastily boarded up. Okay. This was Norman's locker. The door was dented like someone had punched it. I don't remember him doing that when we worked there. Okay. Another panel that I hoped could help me get the power back on. Okay. A utility shelf crammed with mismatched tools and items. There was a claw hammer on the shelf. Did I take the hammer? Sure did. As I took the hammer, I noticed it wasn't as dusty as the rest of the tools on the shelf. Okay. The locker was a complete mess. Hidden at the bottom, though, was a magnetic card. Did I take it? I slipped the key card into my pocket. Okay. Another panel I hope could help me get the power back on. Power panel still wasn't working. Did I try again? And one more time. Power panel still wasn't working. It's on now. Another panel that I hope could help me get the power back on. Power panel still wasn't working. Now it is. Okay. I struck with the hammer. The old wooden boards came apart easily. After I had moved the planks, I left the hammer on the floor. This was my locker, there in the factory. It stank of booze. There was a picture of Rachel on the inside. It looked like it had been torn up. I thought I had taken that picture home when the factory closed. Excuse me. There was a mess of empty booze bottles. I wondered if that man in the house had something to do with this. He sure had a lot of alcohol at his place. Okay. All green. The door's open. Now that the power was back on. Another smudge of dirt, similar to one I found in those sewers, was on the floor. A large pile of building materials and debris blocked the way. Okay. A rusted old regulator of some kind sat dusty and unused against the wall. Okay. Planks, tools, and broken up parts blocked any further passage. Okay. Okay. We gotta go up, right? And let's see. The key card I found seemed like it would pass through this reader. I slid the card through the old reader and turned the handle. Okay. There was some kind of ventilation hatch here. It looked like I could jump to the room below. My leg hurt enough as it was, but I couldn't see another option. Do I jump? Oh man, my leg hurt like hell. Okay. There was a crumpled up letter on the floor. It had been scratched out heavily and it was hard to make out. Did I try to read the letter? Most of the letter was violently scratched out with what looked to be a ballpoint pen. All I could make out was need to. Just don't. Drinking. Need Norman. Who was Norman writing to? I don't know. I stepped out of the factory, glad to be rid of its smell, of its memories. I couldn't stop thinking about that room with the bottles in it. Was that guard I found outside really drinking up there? And who has rooted all those lockers? Couldn't tell where I was as I looked around, but I figured I needed to get to the road, get my bearings. Maybe Norman could help. His store wasn't that far from the turnoff to the factory, if I remember correctly. Why do I hear noises like there's somebody following me? It is so fucking creepy. This garbage bin was a disgusting mess of rotten food and slick, black bags. Saw a thin greenish corner poking out from one of the bags. It was my driver's license. It looked damaged. Did I take it back? Sure do. I cleaned the card off as best I could. It looked pretty beat up. I was amazed to have found my credit card, and now this. I tucked the card into my wallet next to my credit card. Okay. Sounded like it was going to start raining again. Well, let's get inside before we get wet. I had entered Norman's place. This was the back of the store that he ran. It was oddly quiet, except for the faint sound of a television. Okay. The entrance to the front of the store was locked from the inside. It looked like I couldn't just pop it open. It needed a key. There was a bit of blood on the keyhole. Cripey. What the hell? One of Rachel's old autumn coats hung on a rack. That was Norman's bedroom, wasn't it? What was this doing there? Inside the cabinet was a small but impressive collection of hunting rifles, shotguns, and even a few items I didn't think were legal here. One of the slots on the rack was empty. The gun I had found seemed to match the others there. If the handgun was Norman's, what the hell was he doing with it? The gun wouldn't fit here. Did I place it back? No. Though it weighed high on me, I had a hard time parting with the weapon just then. Okay. The TV still flickered some indecipherable channel. Okay. Oh no, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Norman, my co-worker and one of the few friends I had in this town, lay dead beside his armchair. His face and shirt were covered in blood. It looked like he'd been shot trying to get up. His eyes were wide with shock, though they were already drying. Norman, what was Rachel doing here? Why did you have her coat? Norman, maybe you deserve better. You probably did. I closed his eyelids down, shuddering as I did so. I wasn't sure if I wanted to give him peace, or if I just couldn't stand to think anymore about what was going on. Okay. I guess this was Norman's kitchen table. He kept it clean enough, but there were water rings from 2 cups still there in the wood. Ooh, was your wife and Norman cheating? The kitchen trash bin smelled fresh. I didn't dig through it that mess, did I? I found a hairpin amongst the rotting food and trash and pocketed it. Okay. What was this? It looked like a pole chain hanging from the ceiling. I wondered where it led. Gave the chain a single tug and simply folding ladder to the attic popped down. Did we go up? There was a large cardboard box that hadn't been sealed. Do I open it? I opened up the old cardboard box and wasn't entirely surprised by what I saw. There were more of Rachel's things, more of my wife's clothes, photos, shoes, even that old radio I gave her. Why, Rachel? What were you doing here with Norman? Ooh, creepy. I used the hairpin to pick the lock. The hairpin snapped in half, so I threw it away. The general store was small, but it was clean. It had the useful things: postcards, snacks, magazines, and canned goods. Never went there much. Rachel usually stopped by after work if we needed anything. Okay. The register was mostly empty, and a fat stick of travel magazines sat beside it. Fat stack, not fat stick. The icebox seemed to be unplugged. It must have been off for a while. Most of its contents were half melted. Okay. There were various postcards from the area, especially from the tourist traps. One of the postcards showed an old black and white photo of the water tower. That night continued to take horrible turn after horrible turn. It'd been weeks since I'd last seen Norman, but to find him like that? As I thought of him still lying on the floor back there, the gun I carried seemed ever present. Seeing that dusty box of those old clothes was a shock. How long had they been there? And what was Rachel doing at Norman's place? I felt like I had only discovered more questions, no answers, but I was close to home. It was time to find out the truth. 1, 2, 3. The neighborhood's local postbox. A letter was sticking out, as if someone hadn't pushed it all the way in. I knew it wasn't right, but did I look at the letter? Sure. The envelope was addressed to Norman. There was no return address, but the handwriting looked familiar. I took a deep breath and tore open the package. Norman, I'm sending this to you in a letter because I'm afraid to tell you this in person. What we did, well, it was wrong. My husband isn't an easy man to be with. He is my husband and your friend. I need some time to sort this out, away from both of you. I'm going away for a while. I'm going to tell him, Norman, so don't you think that you can hold that against me. Maybe we'll work it out. I'm not sure. I even want to, but he deserves at least that much. Goodbye. Wow. I had entered our backyard. The rain gave me a terrible sense of foreboding, and it chilled me through the clothes. I was expectant, but also afraid. Let's go home and see what's there. I held my breath as I approached our back door. I was terrified to step inside. The house was painfully quiet. The only sound was my own breathing, ragged and strained. I flicked the light switch by the door. The power was off. I remembered having breakfast here on this very table. Was that yesterday or sometime before? Okay. There was a small pile of mail on the floor, in front of the mail slot. How long had I been away? Why hadn't Rachel picked this up? Most of the contents were bills. There was a credit card bill here. I ripped the bill open and read it. To my surprise, it said something about canceling my credit card due to non-payment. What the hell? Okay. Front door was locked from inside. I couldn't go out, though. I needed to see if Rachel was here. Okay. The door to the basement, it was locked. Where had I put the damned key? The door was stuck shut. There was an old-fashioned keyhole underneath the handle. Okay. I had found the last missing piece from my wallet. The old photo of Rachel and I stared back at me, reminding me of better times. Didn't make me feel terribly comfortable. Did I keep it anyway? I replaced the photo in my wallet, feeling like I had got part of my life back. Still, the image made me uneasy. Why had I thrown it away? I don't know. Our television. I had purchased it before I knew I was going to lose my job. Felt pretty guilty about it afterward, but by then it was too late. The books there were half mine, half Rachel's. Hey, now that I looked more closely, it looked like the man in that house had some of the same books as I did. Interesting. My wife's, Rachel's suitcase was sitting on the bed. It was closed, but I had a feeling what was in it. Inside Rachel's suitcase were a few days' worth of clothes, some personal effects, and a train ticket. As I stared at the ticket, I could feel myself flushed with anger and resentment. The date and time matched the receipt I had found. Okay. Our hallway mirror had been smashed into pieces, scattered around the floor. Okay. Our sink, which needed to be replaced. One of the taps always stuck, but I hadn't got around to fixing it yet. We were lucky enough to get a house with one of those wonderful old claw-footed bathtubs. My laptop had been left on and only had a tiny bit of power left. On the screen was a website about the old water tower. There was a key in the top of the drawer of my desk. Did I take it? I pocketed the key. Okay. I unlocked the basement door. There were old Christmas decorations in the box. Okay. The garbage bags were stuffed with old paint cans and supplies. There was also a dirty old key here. Did I take the key? Checked the small key and tried to remember what it unlocked. Don't know. There were old clothes, tools, and other things we obviously hadn't thrown out yet. I put up this divider wall last summer so we could create a separate room in the basement. I hadn't finished it yet, so the door was stuck, and the drywall was poorly installed. I might have been able to break through if I found something heavy enough. Okay. The grimy key I had found in the basement unlocked the door. It looked like the room had been tossed around. The furniture was a mess. The furniture was a mess. Did somebody break in here? I don't know. There was an old crowbar on the floor. Do I need it? Yeah. I lifted the heavy crowbar and I appreciated its weight. Okay. Okay. Did I break through the wall with the crowbar? With a heave, I swung the crowbar at the wall. I smashed a hole large enough to step through. As I stepped through the broken wall, my breath caught in my throat. This was it. Was Rachel down there? Was she okay? Okay, so... A filthy-looking pile of rags had been dumped in the corner. The stench of them was awful and made my eyes water. I was terrified to even touch the pile to see what lay within. After all this searching, after all I had seen, when I looked within the rags, did I finally find my Rachel? Wrapped within the filthy rags, pale and still, was Rachel. She was covered in fading bruises and what looked like cuts. Her chest was a horrible mess of blood and dirt, and I couldn't bear to look at it. The knife in my boot, the gun in my pocket, were they the tools of her murder? I thought about all I had seen and wondered if any of it could help me figure out who had done this. And when I couldn't stay there any longer, I stepped away on shaky legs and made my way back upstairs. Reluctantly, exhausted from my journey, I could no longer resist the urge to close my eyes. Maybe I would use some of Rachel's travel books and find some place to go. It was my wallet with its contents intact. Either I dropped that stuff or somebody else did. Maybe I was sleepwalking again. Or maybe somebody stole it from me. Norman's store, that forest, the water tower. Was I at those places before? I didn't see how it could have happened any other way. I must have been the one to lose my wallet and its contents. Well, what does that mean? This was the old photo of that other man and his wife, I assumed. I found it in that house. I recalled those faded remains I had found, deep underneath his house. What had he done there? Well, what did I think? Was that man involved in this whole mess somehow? I'm gonna say yeah. Definitely. Those tunnels, the odd tools in his house, and the remains of his wife. He wasn't innocent, that's for sure. Okay. Within the few broken pieces that remained of that mirror, I could see my face had grown pale and weak. I couldn't bear to look again. It was like I didn't actually expect a reflection. I felt empty and drained. Okay. The reflection in that grimy glass was only a shadow, a whisper. I still loved the old-time charm of that claw-footed bathtub, though it seemed like cold comfort then. Okay. It was the key card I found in the factory, the one that allowed me to slip through the door. It seemed to me that it was probably Norman's, but if it was true, what was he doing back at the plant? Did I think Norman was going back to the factory? It must have been him. He must have been using the old locker room. The laptop had finally run out of power. My old office safe sat on the floor. I used to keep tax records and other important documents in it. It used a digital passcode lock, but I didn't have the code. Maybe I had left it somewhere. Okay. I leafed through the notebook I had taken from the forest. In it were the names that had been written down. Heather, Olivia, Ashley, Cheryl, Iris, Daphne, Holly, Rose, Rachel. Those poor girls. Were they victims of the same person who had killed Rachel? I wondered what happened to the other names on the list, or the ones scratched out on that desk in those wet tunnels. Okay. The laptop was dead, but I found some notes and loose paper in the drawer where I had found the key. There was a yellow sticky note with an 8-digit code on it. Did I take it? Yep. The code looked like it might be for the safe. What kind of phrase was that? Oh no. What am I doing? The code I found should have me... Yeah. The code worked. I pulled open the small safe door and peered inside. There was a photo in there of Rachel and I when we had first moved to town. In it, we were smiling outside the front of the house, which looked like a real mess. We looked happy, though. Odd, I couldn't remember who took that photo. Inside the safe was also an envelope. The front of it reads, "Do not open until I tell you." I guess this was a good time as any to see what's inside. I tore open the envelope and removed the yellow-lined paper inside. On it was a letter written in hand that looked familiar. The letter read, "I know this whole event had probably been pretty difficult. You can't imagine how hard it had been for me, too. Well, maybe you can. That isn't meant to be an excuse, but, well, I hope you can better understand why I've done what I've done. Moving to this town seemed like such a dream. Quiet place to get established, to live out our lives and be together. But you know as well as I do that things quickly changed. Your drinking was one thing, but as you grew more distant, as you retreated into that world of yours, well, it was clear you didn't need me as much. In fact, maybe you never needed me at all. But it took all this to make you realize. In the end, though, you may never forgive me for this. You may never forgive yourself. But this is probably for the best. You'll be healthier for this. I'm just sorry it had to happen this way. Rachel." Okay. It was the letter I had taken from the postbox. "Rachel, were you really having an affair with Norman?" "But why? I didn't think things were that bad." In the letter, Rachel seemed concerned. She almost seemed worried of what Norman might do. I was sure of it. She wanted to end their affair, and that bastard he killed her for it. A lot of it made sense. Norman was clearly seeing Rachel a lot, so he had plenty of time to plan it out. He knew, obviously, where we lived. Is that why Rachel looked so scared when I came home that day? What had happened to me? Did Norman knock me out or something? Okay. From now on, I'd have no one to get angry with me for stupid things like buying this TV. It seemed like I had seen all there was. Maybe, I thought. I was ready to go back into the basement. Maybe there wouldn't be anything for me to find, but I had to take the last look. If I wanted to end it, I could do it. I could do it with the gun. Did I pick it up again? No. Just the thought made my head spin. Left the gun on the cold basement floor. Yes. Now we have the gun. Okay. I sat down at the table and stared at the gun in my hand. It didn't seem so heavy this time. The question was, did I think I deserved it? Was this my fault? Did I deserve to die? Living in this town hadn't been easy. The plan had helped in some way to stay grounded. It kept me in line, gave me something to do, and helped me get away from my past. When the factory closed, everything changed. I guess that was when I had started sleepwalking, disappearing for hours at a time. I had MRIs and piles of doctor's reports, but nothing seemed to help, not even drinking. But I swear I had tried to give it up. I know it. The sleepwalking never really went away, though. But I know Rachel had tried. I know she had tried to be there for me even when everything was falling apart. This night had under a terrible truce, but I knew it was a final act of a long-standing horror I'd been living. Walking up in that house tonight was the final cruelty. I wish I had remained unconscious in that room forever. It was obvious to me that the man I had found in the house had something to do with all this. Could he have killed Rachel? It started to seem that there was too many things I had seen to think otherwise. After making it out of those tunnels, I thought those sewers might feel safer. I was wrong. Security tape I'd watched showed someone being attacked by what looked like two people. But who was it that was attacked? I had found the contents of my wallet scattered throughout town. Why the hell had I been out there? Had my sleepwalking gone to some new extreme? The thought that I couldn't account for my whereabouts, but knew I had been to that forest, and even Norman's place, well, it was terrifying. I didn't know what that meant, but at least I had recovered my things. Hopefully, I thought, that would cover my tracks so I wouldn't be blamed for all this. Even more troubling were those poor girls I found in those terrible woods, half hidden in a shallow grave. Their secret deaths seemed like the ultimate defiling. If I hadn't found them, would anyone have done so? Would they have been missed? I vaguely recalled the desk I had seen in those tunnels, the names etched there. Someone had killed those girls. Was it that man? It was clear, at least, that Norman had been going back to the old plant. Maybe he was the one who had boarded up that locker room, who had been drinking up there in that secret hiding place. So, had he killed that guard then? He must have. Maybe he was found out, or the guard had caught him on patrol. Damn it, Norman, why? After the factory, I thought I might find some solace if I could just get to Norman's store. But all I had found were more horrors and more questions. Now that I really consider it, that's when I should have seen it coming. Norman, you were dead, and it was damn hard to feel bad about it. It was clear you and Rachel were more than just friends, but obviously whatever had been going on had gone badly. So why'd you kill her? Did she want out of whatever you two were getting into? Were you responsible for the other murders and of those other horrible things that had gone in that town? I would find no peace, that much was certain, but this way I didn't have to look at you in the eye or sit through some kind of trial and wonder what was going through your head. When I had marched through the rain towards home, I desperately clung to the hope that this would end. And I guess in a way it did. How could I have known how hopeless it all was? I started to feel as disoriented as when I sleepwalked, to think of it now. Coming through the back door and into the kitchen should have tipped me off that something was horribly wrong. There was no sound of television, radio, even the air was still. But seeing Rachel there, lying ruined and discarded in the basement, that was a horror I could never have imagined. That other man I had found was involved in all this somehow. I knew it. But it was Norman, the traitorous son of a bitch who had done the deed. Whatever was going on, he was the one who took Rachel away from me. I hated him for it more than I could possibly express. But that offered no strength, no solace. Rachel was gone now, and I was too, forever. I checked the gun again. It still had a few bullets left. I felt surprisingly calm as I sat there with it. I could feel its weight, and perhaps that sense, that presence, that allowed me to understand what had to be. Rachel was dead, and there was nothing I could do about it. And there you go. That's the end of Home. So Monday we will start a whole new game. Probably more short games like this, but more games. So have a good one. Thanks for joining me. Please like, subscribe, comment. Tell your friends to do the same, and I'll see y'all